Greetings! In this little tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to be using some of the retouch tools that Photoshop has to allow you to do a little bit of work on photographs to improve them, solve little problems. So I've got this piece of stock image. It's of a not unattractive young lady, but there's a few things that we can do here to improve this photograph. Her complexion needs some work. She's got quite a lot of freckles. We could do with cleaning up the quality of her skin generally, just to sort of improve that. Maybe get rid of some of the hair from the background. We may even mess about with the eye colours, trim her eyebrows, do all sorts of little bits and pieces. We'll see how it go. I'm just going to dive in and start to use some tools, and you'll see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer so I've got a copy of the original. Okay, so I've got two copies exactly the same, and I'm just going to work on this one for now. So first thing we've got to do is we've got to clean up some of the more obvious skin blemishes, and to do that I'm going to dive straight in and I'm going to use the spot healing brush. There are all sorts of tools you can use in Photoshop, but this is an absolute godsend for just doing tiny on the spot little corrections. So let's pick on some of the more obvious freckles. That one, gone. Yep, just left clicked on it. That one, gone. There, gone. What it's doing is it's sampling all the pixels around, and it's attempting to fill that space with an average sample of the surrounding pixels. So we can just, you can spend ages on this. The more you do it, the more in depth you can go, and you can just spend ages on this. I'm just going to go in through fairly quickly and just bash in some of the more obvious ones that I'm seeing. If you start to go too far, you'll actually start to get breakup on the image. It will start to be resampling things that you've already resampled, and it just will start to go, but it's not too bad at the moment. Just keep going, looking for, I'm actually sort of going smaller and smaller with the samples that I'm picking. And you can see that's cleaning up quite now. See there on the lip, I did that wrong. There is actually one there. Let's just see if we can just trim it off. That's not bad. Okay, so quite a bit of work done there already. As I say, I could spend ages on this. Okay, I'll show you another tool that we can use, which I'm going to use to try and just tidy up these eyebrows. They're slightly untrimmed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the clone tool. Clone stamp. Okay, what this does is it copies one area to another area. Now if you turn the opacity down, you can do something quite clever. So if I left click with the Alt key held down, I can select an area of skin that's reasonably clean and free of obstruction. So let's pick that bit there. And what I can do, now you can see as I move the mouse over, it's showing me what it's going to do. And it's cloned in skin from over there to over here, but in doing so it's removed the hair. So we'll try and do a little bit more maybe there, and just take a little bit of the eyebrow away. I want to do this little bit up here, so I'll pick a sample from there, and I'll just go in and take a little bit of that out. I'm not, now the snag is with that, it's now quite uneven, so I'm going to actually sample some of the eyebrow and actually paint some more eyebrow back in. So I've just tightened that up, neatened it slightly, and that's pretty good. Okay, simple tools. It's cleaned up her complexion quite a lot, tidied up her eyebrows. It's not perfect yet, there's still more things we can do. She's still got quite a lot of freckles in this region. We want to try and smooth that skin as much as we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roughly, using the Lasso Tool, I'm going to roughly select, oops, hang on, I'll do it on the magnetic lasso this time, or polygonal. So I'm just going to select roughly, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, area of skin. I can always clean up. Well, you'll see what I mean when I get to the end. But I can clean up what I'm doing with the edges a little bit later on. So I'm selecting this area here. So that's, broadly speaking, got the bulk of her skin, and I'm going to now do a subtractive edit to take out things I don't want to copy. So using the Alt key, I can now select areas that I do not want to be included in my selection. So I do not want that eyebrow. I do not. So I'm still holding the Alt key down. I do not want this eyebrow. I do not want this eye. I'm going to go fairly tight in. And I do not want this eye. Okay, I do not want this area around the nose because there's quite a lot of detail in there that I want to preserve. And I want to keep her mouth reasonably intact. So we're subtracting all of these from the selection. Okay. So now if I do copy and paste, we now get this slightly freaky thing where we've just got the skin of the young lady. What we're going to do is we're now going to apply some filters to this to tidy this up and remove the curves, and we're going to remove the freckles. We'll start by doing a blur. We're going to do a Gaussian blur, and we're going to turn that down. We don't want it too far, we want it just so that all of those freckles are pretty much gone. Nice and smooth. Okay, let's put the... Now can you see what's happened? I've put the face back, and now we've got this layer over the top. I'm going to reduce its opacity, so it's not quite so strong. I know, wow, yeah? The Gaussian blur means it blends quite nicely, and it's really smoothed up her skin quite a lot. You can still just about see the freckles in there. If you want, you could duplicate that layer again, and you can even duplicate it again, and you can keep going, but the thing you've got to watch is the more you do it, the more it's actually going to lose detail. Okay, so I actually think that's a little bit too far. So I'm just going to take it right back to just the one. And now at this point I can even play around with the colour balance. So I can make that skin redder, I can make it paler, I can bring in different colours. So I can just play a little bit around with the tones, make it maybe slightly warmer, or I can just leave it exactly as it was. I could mess about with the shadow levels. Okay, so that's something you could do. I'm just going to cancel that. You can go in and you can play around with the brightness and the contrast, and you can lighten the skin and reduce the contrast or increase the contrast. I think I might just make it a little bit paler just so it matches better in with the skin down here. That's pretty good. Let's just fiddle about with that opacity slightly. I just want to smooth that skin out slightly more. Yeah, that's okay. That's pretty good. Now what you can do is you can now go into the layer below. You can select, using the Lasso Tool, areas of this skin where she's particularly freckly. Sort of the worst offenders. And just within that area we can apply a Gaussian blur. Not quite so much, we don't want to lose too much of the detail, but we can do a bit. Then pop that back over the top. Now that's improved the quality of the skin still further because that mottling from the freckles has disappeared somewhat. That's pretty good. Okay, quite pleased with that. I think what we'll do now is I'm going to get rid of this hairline. So still working on this layer with the face on. I'm going to switch to magnetic lasso, and I'm now going to trace this, the edge of her face and around the edge of her ear, and then come down, join that up, Whoops, lost it. Whoa! Start again. My apologies. This is how not to do it. Right. Start there. Go up, round, 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 down to the corner. And I want to try and make those meet. There we go. Now I can use the Lasso Tool, hold the Shift key down to add to the selection, and just grab the bits that it didn't hit. Okay. I'm going to apply a small modification to the edge of that. I'm just going to feather it ever so slightly, about 3 pixels, and press delete. Okay. It's not perfect. Is that because we've got... Yeah, it just needs to be rubbed out ever so slightly more. Should have gone in slightly more. So what we'll do, we'll go back to where we were. We'll go select, modify, expand, and we'll expand by about 2 pixels, and then we'll press delete. That's better. Now we've got a much nicer edge. And if we need to, we can just go in with the rubber and we can just tweak ever so slightly. So let's go back. That's looking, I hope you'll agree, 1,000 times better. Okay, couple of little cosmetic changes. What we'll do is we'll select that area of hair. I'll hold the Shift key down and I'm going to select this area of hair. You can do this with the magnetic lasso, or I've got a fairly steady hand, so I'm just going to do it freehand. There we go. We'll copy that, paste it. So now we've got her hair on a separate level, and we can go in and we can do adjustments, and we'll play around with the hue saturation, switch to colorize, and now we can recolour this young lady's hair. So I'm quite partial to a redhead, so let's change that to red. Not too strong. And then what we'll do is reduce the opacity so it's overlapping, and we've just subtly changed the colour of her hair. So that's got that. And then the last thing we're going to do is we'll change her eye colour, and then we'll call it... no, I needed to just... what I'll do is I'll just blur that in. You can use the smudge tool, smudge that down, just to tidy up around her nose. If I had more time, I'd probably go in and do that a little bit nicer and smooth out around these wrinkles around her eyes, but for now, that'll do. Right, her eyes. Okay, so we'll go to the selection tool. We will do elliptical selection tool, and we're going to select that eye. Hold the Shift key down, and we'll do that eye, and we will copy those, paste them to a new layer. Hang on. Copy those, making sure I've got the young lady's face selected. Copy those and paste those to a new layer. There we go. So now we have a pair of eyes. And again, we can go in, adjustments, hue saturation, colorize, and we can now give this young lady whatever colour eyes we want. We'll go for green. And then I'm just going to rub out the bits where it overlaps. The eyelids, zoom out, and there we go. So what I'm going to do is take all of those layers and merge those layers. So that's now one picture. So we've got after, before, after, before, after. Okay. Not bad, eh? I like it. Right.